friends. Hello. Happy Friday. Holy smokes, it's Friday. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so happy you could join me today. I've got a really fun tutorial. I can see people popping in. I wasn't sure how it was going to go. It is a holiday weekend coming up, but I see some people popping in. Hi, Cherie. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Sue. Hi, Deb. So we've got Ohio and Seattle. Hi, T. Phillips. Um, Lots of fun things. People popping in, and if you're catching me on the live, I'm so grateful you could join me today. I started a little bit earlier today. Normally, I like to do this from 12 to 1 EST, making a card over lunch. But today, I started about a half an hour early. And friends, here in Maryland, we are under a tornado watch. So weather. So everything looks pretty gloomy out there right now, but we'll see how it goes. So, Bling Bling Crafter, the highlight of my Friday. Oh, hi, Ann. Hello, Cherie. Hello, Sue. I see everybody popping in. It's so exciting to see you. So today I have a really fun but easy-going tutorial. Many of you have asked me about using Inktense pencils. When I did the live a couple weeks ago with watercolor pencils, many of you have asked about Inktense and how are they different and how can we use them. So today I'm going to use them, and we're going to do some watercoloring, and we're going to make a super fun card. So I see more people popping in. Hi, Terry. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Heidi. Cloudy. Yeah. So cloudy here in Connecticut. Yeah. In Maryland, again, we're under a tornado watch. So I am watching the weather and, have all those little warning things available to me if something goes down. But we've got like a whole day of tornado watch. So, but I did want to come in and do the live. So let's go ahead and dive in and get started. I'm going to go ahead and go down to my down camera here. But yeah, let's have some fun. So let's go ahead and go down to the down camera. I'm going to pop back and forth. And remember, if you have questions along the way, pop them in the chat. That's over here on my screen, so I can see it. And it isn't like there's thousands of people in here and I can't see it. So super fun. I'm just, hi Geraldine. Super fun. It's so cool to see you guys pop in. I just get a little derailed and excited. But okay, let's go ahead and go to the down camera. I'm going to talk a little bit about supplies. And we're going to dive right into the lesson with Inktense pencils because that's primarily what we're going to be doing today. Watercoloring the beautiful Morning Glory from my newest set with Gina K Designs. So, okay, let's go ahead and go down to our down camera. I'm going to move my keyboard here. Yes. Okay, so Heidi says she has a huge set of, here, let me just turn this camera a little smidge right there. Okay, we're down in our down camera. And I'm hoping it doesn't get too dark outside either. So, it makes it a little difficult to see things with the light. But here is the card inspiration. Sherry just asked, where are we, that it's going to be that stormy. I'm in Maryland, Sherry, so we're under a tornado watch today. And, we have them every once in a while, so it happens. It's just been very, very strange weather this spring. So, okay, so this is the card inspiration for today. This is the Best Things in Life, my newest stamp set with Gina K Designs. So here is the stamp set. You can see that my set is already super well loved. This set came out a week ago, and if you haven't had a chance to watch the preview video, that's linked up down below in the description, and you can also find it here on my channel. And also, don't forget that you can grab the Best Things in Life card idea sheet with 8 card ideas, absolutely free to you. The link is down below in the description. But here's the set that we're going to be working with today. And we're just going to be working with the big honkin' Morning Glory piece and doing some watercolor. But again, a lot of the technique that I'm going to be sharing today is all about the Inktense pencils. So quick look at the supplies. I'm using Ready Cut Watercolor from Strathmore. This is 100% cotton cold pressed paper. I love it for paper crafting. Um, just a quick FYI, all of the things that I'm sharing, supplies, and I might feel like I'm zipping through them rather quickly, they're linked down below in the description. So no worries there. Okay, I've got some Inktense pencils and I'm going to dive in. I've got some brushes. I've got my Connect glue, super simple. I'm going to be using these enamel accents. These are from Inktense. These are from Ranger. Yeah, these are fun because they create that like that little like button like look feel to it. And I just kind of love that simple embellishment where the card and the images are the star of the show. It just makes it super simple. So I just took my glasses off, friends. I was trying to figure out, struggling why everything was blurry. It's because I have my glasses on. Okay, I'm using Gina K Designs Amalgam ink, Obsidian, because it'll be, it's perfect for the watercoloring. And the other things I have here are some Inktense blocks, and I'm going to talk about them. I've got two things. Now, I'm going to move this out. I'm going to bring in the card base. I've got Jelly Bean Green. Again, the card today is super, super simple because we are going to focus quite a bit on the technique for Inktense, with Inktense. Oh, thank you, Irma. My owl rang. I love my owls. This is Jelly Bean Green cut to an A2 sized card. And I have pre-stamped my Morning Glory because we're going to be painting that on the Strathmore 100% cotton watercolor paper. And I cut that out using, I know I use this probably every single card. This is one of the Master Layouts dies. And then I also pre-cut my sentiment, the best things in life aren't things, with another one of the dies from the Master Layouts. And again, that's in the description as well. Let's go ahead and move that over to the side. Now, we're going to go ahead in and, coolio. There's 35 of you in here. Hi, everybody. That's so cool. And it blows me away every single time when people come to the lives. It's just super fun for me. Okay, let's go ahead. Let's dive in and talk about Inktense. Now, I'm going to bring a few things in that are Inktense related. I've had these Inktense sets for quite some time. Years. Okay, lots of years. Wendy just asked, is the paper smooth and easy to stamp? The paper has a little bit of texture. It's not quite like hot press paper. Very, very slight texture. It is 100% cotton, but it's not like super rough. I found it very, very easy to stamp on. And I stamped that image without a misting in one shot. So, hope that helps. Okay, so this is a set of 72 Derwent Inktense pencils. Now, they come in this, holy smokes, they come in this big tin, and they look like this. And they are just lovely. Now, do you have to get the set of 72? No. They have like a set of 100. They have, I think the max they have is like, I want to say 130 or something. It's a big set. 72 is ample, believe me. I tend to go big or go home sometimes. But they do have sets of 12 and they do have sets of 24. You really don't need a lot because these colors are really fun to mix. You can mix them. So these are the Inktense pencils. And these products are made by Derwent. They're a UK company. These are my Inktense blocks. And there's like 2 rows of these blocks. And we're going to talk about, here, let me just pop it down. We're going to talk about the blocks. I've had these blocks forever and ever and ever and a day. My favorite one, and I've got a bunch of them over here that I'm going to be using and just kind of showing you some things with. I use the white one a lot, but yeah, these are fun. And you know, if you invest in them, you're basically going to have them for life because they're like a lot It is a lot. Heidi just said she had this set of 72. This is a newer to my stash. This is also, Derwent has come out with their Pan Studio sets with the, it feels like to me, you got a Derwent block, like cut in the shape of a pan and popped in here. So they just kind of made this, they have a 12 and this is a 24, I think, or 36 or something. Pan Studio set. This is super fun too. And I've been enjoying this for quite some time. I've had this one for about a year. So, yeah, about a year. So this is super fun. When I want to grab something quick, I grab this. But basically, all of the Derwent Inktense pieces, mediums, work the same. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. Okay. So these are the pencils I'm going to be working with. Now, one of the things that can be kind of annoying a little bit is that the pencil is blue, but the end gives you the color. So if that doesn't bother you, you know, it's all good. Your colors are right here. I highly, highly suggest doing a color swatch sheet. So here's what I did for my Derwent Inktense. I did this, oh my gosh, I'm going to say this set is over 10 years old. So I did this about 10 years ago. And you can see how super vibrant these colors are. And they act like a watercolor pencil. So basically, the Inktense pencils are super vibrant. They can be used like colored pencils, and they activate with water. So you've seen, if you've been with me on the lives before, I've done watercolor pencils and I've shared other watercolor mediums. But what makes these different is that their colors are super, super brilliant. They're intense. It is an intense payload of color that you get when you use them. And they're not watercolor. They're ink. So when they dry, they are ink and they're permanent. Okay? So they're permanent when dry. So it makes them an ideal medium to use. Like if you do mixed media and you want to use watercolor pencils and then you want to use paint over top and you want to use other mediums that are wet, this layer of Inktense won't move. Once it's dry, it's permanent. So even if you try to reactivate it with water, it won't move. And that's what makes it different. That's what makes it super different. And they also work on other mediums besides paper. Okay, so they work on fabric, they work on ceramics, they work on wood, they work on other mediums besides paper. So it makes them kind of an ideal universal choice for colored pencil, watercolor pencil, and permanent mediums. It makes it super fun. So that's what makes them very, very different. So I've got a quick question here. What pencils and watercolor paper are good for a beginner? Never ever watercolored. Thank you for helping. Oh, so some good beginning things, watercolor pencils. You know what? This is the Bling Bling Crafter who asked this question. I'm going to pop a couple videos in the chat a little bit later on for that, because I do have a couple other videos just a couple weeks back that really took a deep dive into some of the beginning supplies and basic supplies, and that might just be more helpful. Cheryl just shared she loves to color swatch. It saves you so much time. It totally does. The color swatching it just kind of helps you also just see what you have. And also just in case you want to buy something else, you don't duplicate, right? So the other thing about the Inktense pencils is that you don't have to buy them in sets. Most stores will sell them individually, most like art supply stores. Okay, so let's take a dive in. We're diving in. I've got some things here. I'm going to show you the Inktense and how it's, let's move a couple things. that and how super vibrant they are. So we're going to do the pencils first, and then we're going to do the blocks. I'm going to show you some of the fun things with the blocks. And then I'm going to show you a little bit with this. And then we're going to dive back in and paint our morning glory. Okay. Hi, Pam. Pam just joined us. She said she needs to swatch. Yeah, I feel ya. There's some, when I don't swatch things, I don't end up knowing what I have. Okay. I've got this iris blue color, and I want to show that to you on my swatch here. It's right here. It is such a pretty, pretty color. I love it. Okay. So now, with your Inktense pencils, you can use them like a color pencil, and you can mix and mash two colors together very easily. But we're going to go through three basic techniques: direct to paper, dry on wet, painting direct to paper. Forgot the R there. Paper. Okay, so I'm going to take my pencil. Now, a couple videos ago, I talked about how I don't hold my pencil really close to the tip because I'm very heavy-handed. I'm left-handed and I'm heavy-handed. So I tend to hold my pencil out a little bit further so that I can get a little more control and I can go direct to paper without really being too smooshy and smooshing my color in. Now you can see that it works a lot like a color pencil. You know, I'm layering, and I'm going to turn this, and let's see, I am going to zoom in a little bit more for everybody. That helpful. There we go. So I'm just kind of, you can see that I can layer my pencil even more so I can get lights to darks. Okay, so that's direct to paper. I'm taking my pencil and going directly to paper. Now I'm going to take a little bit of this yellow and do the same thing with direct to paper. And I'm going to go, I've got it out here. And I'm going to show you how you can easily mix these colors together. I'm going over that blue with that yellow. And you could easily use these like a colored pencil and continue to blend them and add layers very much like a colored pencil. But what makes them super magical and fun is that's direct to paper. So I've just taken, here, let me move this over. This is my water. I've taken my pencil and I've gone direct to the paper, applying the pencil. They feel very, very smooth too when you're working with them. Dip my brush in, and now I'm going to activate this. And holy smokes, it activates super quick. Look at that green mix right there. Oh, I love it. I'm going to come back to this side and just activate this. Now, not all watercolor pencils activate this well. These Inktense pencils, look at them, super vibrant. Look at that yellow. The yellow I'm using is called Sun Yellow, and it definitely is sunny. Look at that color. So they activate very, very well. They come up, and you can mix colors very well here. You don't get a lot of scratchiness with the pencil. You can see this little spot right here that I didn't activate. Let's just go in and activate it. And you can use them like a watercolor medium. And you need very little to make color just move. Now it's starting to dry. So see how it's starting to dry? Once this is dry, I'm not going to be able to move it. So you do need to kind of work fast if you live in a warmer climate, right? Where things kind of dry fast. But once this dries, I'm not going to be able to move it. It's permanent. Okay. So that's direct to paper. That's taking the pencil directly to the paper. Now I'm going to take one of the Inktense blocks. Now the Inktense blocks are very, very much the same. They're just in block form. It's the same formulation. So you can do direct to paper with the blocks, And what makes it nice is that you can kind of cover a larger area with the blocks. So if you're trying to cover like a large background, that's a really ideal way to do it with the blocks. Hi, Michelle. Michelle just popped in, said hello. Okay, and you can activate it very much the same way. But it does, the blocks leave a little more texture behind that you have to work with to really get it. But you can see I'm dissolving it. That ink dissolves very quickly. So that was the block. Look at that. You can still see a little bit of the texture, but I love that. Now I could work it and keep working it and it would go away. You know, it would dissolve. But the other thing is, clean my brush here. You can use some of what you got there as paint. So that's kind of cool. One of the other ways, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this when I talk about painting direct to paper, to Poppy, because I forgot the R. Way to go, Lise. Okay, now dry on wet. This is, I'm going to grab a little bit of a bigger. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, or you've seen my watercolor tutorials, I love me some washy watercolor, right? So wet, washy. But when you're working with mediums like pencils and blocks and things like that, sometimes the washy watercolor is a little challenging to achieve. So I'm going to do, this is dry on wet. So I'm going to wet the paper first, okay? And it's a little bit humid, so things are drying a little quicker than I'd like, but that's okay. And then I'm going to take that same, this is bright blue. I'm going to take bright blue. You could take your pencil and you can go in to the wet and you can apply your pencil in there. And you can see that it's like moving across. So dry on wet will give you, the pencil's dry, the paper's wet. You end up getting, you get some watercolor effects, but you get that textured look. You get a very, very textured look. Now, when we did dry on wet with watercolor pencils, I'm going to bring this in. We did this a couple weeks ago. You can see you still get that textured look, but you can blend, it blends out a little bit more. But the Inktense, there's a lot more pigment. So there's a lot more to blend. So if you're trying to get that to blend and you're working in wet, you can get it to blend. And you can move it around and get it to go smoothie on you. So you can wet your paper first and then apply if you want. And we're going to do that a little bit with the Morning Glory. I'm going to show you this down here with the blocks. So I've got a little wet, little water on my brush. Okay, then I'm going to go in with my block and I'm going to go ahead and kind of get that effect there. And it's super scratchy. You can see that there's a lot of texture. But if I want it smooth, I got to take some time and move it around. Okay? But I don't want it smooth. If I want the texture, you can see that pigment loading up on that paper. Those little, that texture right there that you see, that's pigment coming right from the block. But these colors are so vibrant. This is almost dry, and then I'm going to show you how we're not going to be able to move it. Okay, so dry on wet. Now, here is one of my favorite ways to use Inktense pencils. Okay, I'm going to grab the white blue. Painting direct to paper. And this is, let's see, let's get a smaller brush here. Painting direct to paper. You can take your wet brush, just like what you can with a watercolor pencil. Look, I'm doing some little splatters there. And you can lift up some of that color and then you can paint it. Look how vibrant that is. So you're getting an intense amount. Cheryl just said dry and wet. As the pencil tip dries, will it create and harden the tip? Yes. So she's asking, so see how I'm getting my my brush on the tip here. It will harden and it will dry. Look at that intense color right there. It will harden and it will dry, and you will be able to go back to using it as a pencil if you want to try it. So this is painting direct to paper with your brushes. I mean, not your brushes, your pencils. And then I'm bringing this block in, painting direct to paper. Sue says her favorite technique is direct to paper. It is my favorite technique too. And I think it's because I'm super heavy handed. But I'm going to do a mixture of both when we paint the Morning Glory so that you can see. Now, if you like this technique of painting direct to paper and you're not really sure about pencils, right? But you really like the effects of the Inktense, that the Inktense medium can give you, consider getting the blocks and using them like this. Okay, so I'm just applying my brush to the block and then lifting and getting it and using it as paint and just painting it right down onto my paper here. And it's just as intense as it is with the pencil. Love it. Absolutely love it. Oh, love, love, love. Okay, now here's another super fun way. I'm going to change colors here to use the Inktense blocks. Okay, this is, I think this is carmine block. You can use this. These are from Derwent. They call it the sprinkler. I don't, any kind of mesh would do. You could even use something right from your kitchen that was kind of had mesh. But you're basically just taking your block and you're scraping out that pigment and using, and then I'm going to activate it. So Sue just asked, so the blocks are the same material as the pencils, but bigger. Yes, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. If you're loving the painting direct to paper and you really like using the Inktense or what the Inktense can provide for you, go with it. Go with just getting the blocks and using them that way. Or you could even go with the paint pans, because they're the same. It's the exact same formulation and it's all ink. So okay, so I've scraped some of that pigment there. I'm just going to add some water, and now I've got myself some paint to paint with, some ink, some Inktense. This is another way I love to use it because it's just so, using the block, does it come off on your fingers? It actually doesn't. It's not like a pastel or a pastel pen, a pastel piece. And I'll show you that. But see, very little. There's a little bit of a chalky effect, but it's not like using a pastel. Pastel, actually. There we go. So you can see I'm painting with this, and I'm able to control my water ratios. Now, we've talked about this in a couple other videos about water ratios. Doing washes, adding less water, more pigment, lots of pigment. You can get that kind of varying effects with using the Inktense pencils or blocks or the pans. Now I'm going to show you the pans. Let's bring in another. Now let's just do something at the top. So here's the pans. I think one of my favorite colors out of this pan is this Ionian Green. And I've got the pencil. We're going to use that today. Ionian Green. It is the most unique green. It's very dark, but when you lighten it up and add, you get some of the blue pigment that's in it comes out. You can see I put a massive amount of color down at first, right? But I've kept it wet. Yes, you can also do this. Heidi just mentioned you can do this same shaving technique with the pencil. Okay. And I'll show you that real quick. You can do the same technique. You could use a craft knife or you can use any kind of shaver and you'll still be able to pull that pigment off. So if you have the pencils, you can do that. If you have the blocks, you can do that. If you have the pan sets actually come out too. So the pans, you know, they'll pop out. Mine are kind of jammed in there, but you see they'll pop out. So it's like a little block. You could even take the pan and color with it if you wanted to. So they just have 3 different kinds of versions of Inktense that all basically do the same thing. And they're all the same formulation. And they give you lots of variety. So that's what makes it super fun. Okay, so we're going to dive in now to painting the Morning Glories. And I'm going to focus on doing some painting direct to paper and then following up with some direct to paper. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started because me, super washy, I want to do these Morning Glories. I'm going to do a mix. I'm going to make some more. I'm going to do a mix here. I'm going to take some of this carmine Inktense block. I'm going to have some of that color. And I'm going to use, let's see, do I want to use, let's see. I've got iris blue and bright blue. I'm going to go with the iris blue. It's a little bit lighter and play with it. Here's that Ionian Green that I was talking about in the pencil. We're going to play with that too. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to make, you know what, I changed my mind. I am going to do some direct to paper first and then I'm going to do some washy. So I'm going to start with the iris blue pencil. I'm going to do a little bit of all 3 on this, I think. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to do my 3 Morning Glories. I'm going to do 1 in the blue and 2 in the blue and 1 in that crimson. So I'm coming out with the bright blue and I'm coming out pretty far. And I'm using it like a colored pencil or a watercolor pencil. And I'm just going to go ahead and frame in some of this color. So this is giving me my first layer of color. Blue. Let's do this one. Let's do this one down here. I'm going to save that one for last. Blue. Now I'm going to use I'm going to take some of my color and just kind of intensify it from the center out. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. Okay. Now this color looks pretty dull right now. It looks like a navy, which, you know, at first glance I wouldn't love it. You're looking at that color there and you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I like that. But let's see. Let's just keep coloring. And I'm just coloring in, going around my edges here and just getting an application of color in here. Just okay. Now I'm going to come in and I'm going to activate the pencil. Ooh, I got a lot of water there. I'm going to activate the pencil. I got a little too much water. You can see how quickly it is activating with the water. Now the brush I'm using here is a Princeton Heritage. This isn't a super thirsty brush. So it holds a lot of water, but it does also run out of water pretty quickly. And the reason why I like using it with Inktense is because when you're using your watercolor pencils or Inktense or using these blocks, you are you're kind of using your watercolor in a controlled way. And that's what I like about it. You can kind of control where this water is going to go. And this brush also kind of helps you do that because the brush doesn't hold a ton of water to make things super splashy. So it's not a super thirsty. Now this paper is thirsty. It's a super thirsty paper, which I like, which is nice for Inktense. But it isn't rough. So that pigment from the Inktense pencil, you can see I'm running out of water in my brush. That pigment from the Inktense pencil stays on top. It floats on top quite a bit. It doesn't go in. And it's also because I wasn't super heavy-handed with what I was doing. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and blend some of that out. Sue just said, when I color, it looks like a 5-year-old did it. Well, you know what? 5-year-olds have fun when they're coloring. Just take some time and some practice. So that's a first layer. And I'm kind of digging it. I'm liking it. I'm liking the way it looks. I'm going to flip this. I'm going to let that dry. I want to show you something though. You can see, because I've got some blooming going on here. Do you see some of the blooms happening? You can see some of the texture of the pencil, but you can also see some blooms because I've got a little bit of water going there. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the crimson color that I grabbed from the block. Now this is kind of thick, but I'm digging it, like it. Let's add some more water. And I'm going to go direct to paper. Now I'm going in, and I'm going in quick with a little bit more water on my brush, because look how intense that is. And I want to work with it quickly to kind of blend out those edges. So you can see it's a lot smoother because we're going direct to paper with the paint. Sort of like, and it's got a consistency. I'm working fast here because I don't want it to dry. It's got a consistency of paint, like thick paint, right? Or a thick watercolor. So my consistency here is very much like this. Whole milk, full strength. A little bit of water, a lot of pigment. Okay? And my paper is dry. So I'm going direct to paper with my paper being dry. Now, the paper's dry for the Morning Glories because we are focusing on getting an intense amount of color. Oh, I added a lot of water there. So you could see that it moved. So it'll move very well, like a watercolor would. But I'm gonna let that dry. Now, it's pretty intense when you first apply it. When it dry, watercolor and watercolor pencils, when they dry back, they tend to dry back, a couple shades. Inktense, not so much. Dries back, not a lot. Okay, so it pretty much stays the color it is that when you put it down. So we're gonna let those dry. I've never seen a Morning Glory that had 2 different colors, but you know what? We're going for it. We're having some fun with some color. Now I'm gonna go in now, and we're gonna do the next technique. I'm gonna do these 2 the leafery, and we're gonna do wet. So I'm gonna wet my leafery. Oh, I got a hair in there. Go figure. I'm gonna wet my leafery, so we're gonna do wet, dry into wet. I'm gonna take that Ionian Green. Now I could scratch it down and use it that way, but I'm gonna go ahead and go right to my tip here. And then I'm going to just drop some of that Ionian Green in. And you can see that it works very much like a watercolor would. It goes where the water is. And I'm dropping it in, and I'm letting the water do its thing, because I want this leafery to just kind of have a little bit of a washy effect to it. And I'm going to pull some of that out. We're going to get washy around it too. Oops! See that big little sploosh I did? That's all right. We're going to keep it. I'm just going to blend it in out here. and leave it. Now I'm going to go to my pencil. I got a big drop that's getting ready to drop here. And then I'm going to drop in. I dropped that in wet. So I dropped wet into dry there. And I'm just going to let that blend around. And it's okay that it mixed in here. You could see where the two wet areas were just mixed right in. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. I've got a breeze coming in right over here. Now, while this is going, I want to add a little bit. I want to go out and get a little wet wash going on out here. So I'm wetting the outer areas, and any of the color that wants to bleed from what I'm doing, I'm going to let it bleed and just kind of have some fun. So this is how I have fun with the Inktense and still get that washy effect. We're going to dive back in. I've got a little bit. I'm going to drop some of this in. That's some of the blue. I'm going to go back. Let me grab some of this yellow. I think I should do the blocks. Heidi just asked, and I'm sorry, you asked a couple minutes ago and I got too into it. Lisa, would you consider doing a video on how to do the shading and how you can tell? Oh, yeah. Yes, I will. Absolutely. Like getting more intense with the shading and doing some mixing that way. Yeah, Heidi, great idea. Thank you. Dropping in some of this yellow. I don't know if I'm going to like it, but we'll see. So I kind of dropped it in and it's super intense. And I'm going to add some more water and just kind of blend this out. So all my colors are really starting to blend together and kind of look like a little bit of a hodgepodge mess, but that's okay. I'm going to take a little bit of, oh, it's getting a little bit dark out there, guys. But, whoosh. Okay, I'm digging it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just zap this real quick with the heat tool, just to dry it. Okay, zapped it with the heat tool. Had to do that off camera a little bit. So you can see that because we went in really intense with the color, and then let's wipe that off. Then I kind of took a lot of the color away because I was playing with the water. So now I'm going to go back in, and let's go back to this Ionian Green. I'm going to do a little bit of direct to paper and just kind of apply some of this color right on the image here to just bring back some of those lights and darks. And you can see that the color underneath it really didn't move. And I've got some darks happening and lights happening. Now I completely washed that little guy out. So let's go ahead in with my pencil, and I'm going direct to paper, and I'm just applying some color. Now the wash of green that's underneath isn't going to go anywhere when I wet. If I was using a regular watercolor, that color would move. It would reactivate. But now you can see that what's activating is only the color that I just applied. And I'm able to use that color and just kind of blend it out and blend it around to get those greens back. Okay, I'm going to do the same for the blues. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to come back in with the iris blue. Everything's pretty dry here. I'm going to come back in with a light touch and add a little more color to this base and add a little more color to this base. And this is just intensifying the color. And the only thing that's moving here, I'm going to use some of that color that I've got there to just paint some more. See how I picked up that color and I'm able to use it as a paint. I'm going to bring this I'm going to bring this little Inktense block in and just kind of show you. So again, applying direct to paper, brush is wet, paper's dry, adding layers. Inktense is really nice for adding layers because it keeps the transparent quality that you have, but it doesn't move the layer that's underneath it. So you're able to retain like the layers that are underneath it, the lights and the darks that are there. I'm not digging the way that green is looking. So I'm going back up. I had a little too much texture showing. A little too much texture. So this has been sitting for a bit. It wasn't completely dry. So you could see until it's dry, then I don't have time to move it. So, okay. Christy, so happy to be off on a live day. Me too. I'm so happy you're here. Okay. I am going to go in and do a little direct to paper with the crimson. And you can see that intensity of color right there. And I got to work a little quick or it'll dry like that because it's really intense. So I'm able to blend out those edges. I'm going to go in here, just kind of messily put that in down in the center there. And then just go around the edges. I've cleaned my brush. My brush is wet. Paper's dry. I'm just taking the wet brush to the edge of where that Inktense is and I'm smoothing it out to the edge. Sue just asked, do all watercolor pencils dry permanently? No. Watercolor pencils do not dry permanent at all. You can reactivate your piece, your watercolor piece, days, even weeks later. Inktense is the only medium that dries permanent. Now, I'm going to bring this back in and just kind of show you. So remember this first thing that we did? So I'm going to try to go in and move it. And you can see that I'm not even able to move it. It just stays. There's nothing on my brush. It's permanent. So it stays there. Yeah. You can use, Heidi just said, I'm not sure what stamp set I'm going to use. You know what, Heidi? You can use any stamp set with any open line stamp set that you have in your stash, ladies. And everybody has them. You can use your Inktense pencils with and get these watercolor effects. I'm going to leave. I want to show you what's happening out on the outer edge here. Look at that color blending. And I'm leaving it. I also see a little bit of the pigment. I'm going to pull that out. You can also mix colors with this. Mix a lot of colors. I think I'm going to leave this. I'm not loving this. I'm going to go in. I'm going to bring the bring this yellow block in. I'm going to add a little more yellow up here. So you can see I just can keep going in and layering over top. And it's transparent. And it's showing through. And look, 3 things that I forgot to put. 1, 2. Forgot to put something in there. Way to go, Lise. Let's go ahead with my green pencil. My Ionian Green. Just add a couple little pencil lines in here. Sue just said I'm going to use the Big Moth. Oh, Sue, you just give me an idea. That's a great idea. The Luna Moth in my Gina K Designs collection would be perfect to use with these pencils. Okay, so I'm getting these washy-washy looks that I'm kind of digging. I'm going to let that dry a little bit. Now, I'm going to let this dry for a minute, but one other thing I want to show you is in the pencils, there's also a white. And you can use the white to make another, like a pastel version of your color. So I'm going to go ahead, take a little bit of this white and just kind of plunk some of this white down. And then I'm going to add a little bit of this blue to it. So you can mix and match and get like a pastel version of your colors using this white. This white is super intense. So look how pastel-y that is. Love that. Love it. Okay. Question Cheryl just asked. How fast does it dry to be able to go back and correct something? Oh, or just do it in layers? If you're going to correct something, you got to work with it when it's wet because it dries pretty fast. And it also dries depending upon like your climate too. Once it dries, you're not going to be able to move it at all. So that's why I suggest, like with your stamps, I'm just adding a little bit more green here. With your stamps, you work in sections, right? You're going to work in sections, adding color, and I'm layering over top. So you can see I'm layering, this is mallard green over top of that Ionian green. So I'm able to go in and layer over top of what I've already done, but still retain the layers that are underneath it. They're not moving. I'm digging it. I'm digging the way this looks. Not thrilled that I did that one in the Carmine, but you know what? I'm having fun with it. I'm having a lot of fun with it. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of the yellow. Another thing that you can do is you could dip your pencil in the water if you wanted to. And that activates it too. And you can get like an activation of color. But right now I'm just going to add a little bit of yellow to the centers. I'm actually going to go in and add a little embellishment there. But I'm going to add a layer of yellow. You can see that my paper's still wet. Digging it. Loving it. Okay. Now, I'm loving the way these layers. You can see the layers of color. So we had the Ionian green, and then we added the mallard green over top, and all the layers underneath are still showing through, and it's got a lot going on. Now, I'm going to take this white and take my brush. Let me get my medium brush here. And I'm going to do some splatters. I'm going to get some of this color on here and do some splatter. I love this white. The white on the Inktense pencil is super vibrant. Super vibrant. Like really opaque, I mean. And I'm loving the way this looks. So let's go ahead. I'm going to give it a quick zap. Just a quick dry. We're going to go ahead and assemble the card. We're doing great on time. I like to keep this within the hour so everybody can get on with their day, right? So I'm going to add this, and then I'm going to add this on top. But let's go ahead and zap this real quick and get a little more dry before I add some glue. Ooh, loving this. Oh, okay. Now, you saw the first layer that we did. The beautiful thing about watercolor in general is that the more you layer, the more your watercolor glows. Same thing for Inktense. The more you layer your Inktense, and we've done like 2 or 3 layers. I could go even further with this, especially in here. The more you layer, the more intense the color is going to get. And I'm pretty sure that's why they call them Inktense, because it just gets more intense as you go. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of Connect glue on the back here and open up my card base. This is a super simple card today because we were kind of focusing on our watercolor lesson with Inktense. And I'm just going to go ahead and get that down. Just kind of, oh, I'm kind of digging this. It's a little washy, sloppy, messy, but I'm digging it. I'm going to go ahead and put in this sentiment, and I'm going to pop it right, I don't know. I think I'm going to pop it right there. Okay. Okay. I see people, look, I messed up the sentiment on the back earlier, but you know what? You can still use the paper. still use, I just flipped it over and stamped on top of it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and, oh friends, it's starting to rain. You might start to hear it. So, it's starting to rain. I love the sound of the rain. And all of a sudden the color changes because I'm using a lot of natural light right now. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pop some of these enamel accents on. And then just get like a little extra boom. You could do, I just love those little enamel accents because it just adds a little something extra to the card. I'm digging this. I almost feel like now that it's dry, I'm going to go back in with some of, ooh, let's go back in with some of this the white here. And I'm going to add a little bit more white. Get a little more water on that brush. Can you guys hear the rain? Because I have the window open. Heidi said she's grateful that I did this video. Yes! This video I've been wanting to do for a while. Oh, got a little bit of that white up there. Let's just go ahead and smoosh that. Loving the way this card's looking. Loving it. Here's the original inspiration. I might go back and add a little something into the center of the card here, but I don't know. I might just leave it. Loving the way this looks. And now I'm not disliking using that crimson over there. It's kind of a really funky looking look and feel. So I'm going to go ahead and come back to our front camera. See if I missed any questions. It doesn't look. Connie just said there's so much dimension to the project here. And there is. So the really cool thing about using your Inktense pencils or your watercolor is that the more you layer, the more you can create the illusion of dimension because the colors will glow and it starts to look 3D when you're layering your colors. So we are so good on time. We've made a card in an hour together. I'm so grateful that everybody could join me today. I hope everyone's safe, has a wonderful, safe Memorial Day weekend. And yeah, so I won't be back next week for a live. My daughter is graduating from high school and we have celebrations on Friday and Saturday for it. And I'm super excited for her. And yeah. I hope that you really enjoyed today's tutorial. If you are interested in any of the products that I shared, they're all listed down below. And I will circle back for our question. I believe it was Cheryl, related to some of the beginning watercolor pencils and supplies. I do have that. Cheryl, thank you so much. Thanks. Everybody's sending in such beautiful, beautiful comments, and I'm so grateful for that. The other thing I wanted to share is if you are interested in being on my email list, the link is down below in the description. I send out an email usually once a week. I have a lot of freebies that I share, and you'll be in the know for Gina K releases, launches in my classroom. I did recently share that I will be launching a massive watercolor course called Watercolor Wonderland in the fall, and I'm really excited. And Inktense is going to be part of that class. So thanks everyone for the comments about my daughter. I'm just it's just such a beautiful time. So I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. If you are joining, coming back and joining this on the replay, thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for joining me on the live. I hope you get a little bit of time today or into this weekend to craft your joy, get out all your supplies. And if you have any questions along the way about Inktense, feel free to drop them in the comments and I'm happy to answer them for you. So I hope you have a great weekend and I'll see you next time.